Entire cities have vanished from human memory, their stories erased by jungle and sand. High above us, silent orbital sentinels now change that, using electronic eyes to see what our own cannot. This is the power of modern satellite technology, a tool that has fundamentally rewritten archaeology. By the end of this journey, you will see 15 lost civilizations through an entirely new lens, their secrets pulled from the shadows by lasers and radar. How did a legendary white city remain hidden in a Honduran rainforest for centuries? What vast metropolis surrounded a single famous Cambodian temple? We will connect the dots from orbit to antiquity, exploring how ambition and adaptation built these wonders and why they were forgotten. What does it mean for us when a lost world is suddenly found again? Think of it as peeling back layers of the Earth from space. To truly grasp the scale of these discoveries, we must first understand the electronic eyes that made them possible. This is not about old maps or grainy photographs. Modern satellite archaeology operates on a different principle entirely, seeing the invisible by reading the landscape in ways our own senses never could. It begins with a technology called LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Here is how it works. A plane or satellite sends down hundreds of thousands of laser pulses every second. These tiny beams of light hit the ground, and some bounce back from the top of a dense jungle canopy. Others, however, slip through gaps in the leaves and bounce off the actual ground surface, or even the ruins of a stone wall hidden below. By measuring the minute-time difference between these returning signals, a computer can build an astonishingly precise three-dimensional map of the true ground level, digitally stripping away the forest to reveal the ancient topography beneath. It is like suddenly having X-ray vision for an entire mountain range. But what about cities buried under sand or dry soil? Another tool comes into play: synthetic aperture radar. This technology sends out microwave pulses that can penetrate dry ground to several meters depth. When these pulses hit something solid like a buried wall or a foundation, they reflect back to the satellite. By analyzing these echoes, scientists can detect the ghostly outlines of structures completely invisible from the surface. Then there is multispectral imaging. Satellites can capture light in wavelengths far beyond what our eyes see. This allows them to detect incredibly subtle changes in soil chemistry and plant health. A buried stone wall affects how plants grow above it, often making them slightly less healthy. A long filled in ancient canal might retain more moisture, making the plants above it slightly greener. To a satellite sensor, these differences paint a clear picture, like an invisible ink message revealed under a special light. Together, these tools transform vast, impenetrable wildernesses and deserts into open books. They turn the slow, uncertain process of excavation into a targeted scientific exploration, guiding researchers directly to the most promising sites. This technological leap is the foundation of our entire journey, the reason why lost worlds are now stepping back into the light. That key turned in the dense heart of the Musquisha rainforest. For centuries, local tales and indigenous stories whispered of a sacred place known as La Ciudad Blanca, the White City, a realm of immense wealth and spiritual power hidden by design. Many adventurers were drawn into that labyrinth of vines and shadow, and some never returned, their fate adding to the legend's ominous weight. It was the perfect setting for a mystery that seemed destined to remain just a story. But in 2012, a scientific expedition aimed not at the ground but at the sky. Using airborne LiDAR, they mapped the jungle from above, and when the digital foliage was stripped away, the land itself began to speak. The data revealed not just random hills but the clear, geometric footprints of human ambition. There were broad plazas, towering earthen pyramids, and a network of canals and reservoirs, all arranged with clear intention beneath a roof of green that had hidden them for perhaps 1,000 years. The most startling realization was one of scale. This was not a single, isolated white city. The scans hinted at a vast, interconnected settlement complex, suggesting an entire society that flourished and then vanished, leaving no written record beyond the shape of the earth. When researchers finally reached the site on foot, they found a place frozen in time, untouched by looters. Elaborate stone sculptures lay partially buried, vessels and ceremonial objects rested where they were left, offering a direct, poignant connection to the people who built there. This discovery fundamentally reshaped our understanding of pre-Columbian Central America. It proved that sophisticated, populous civilizations thrived in regions long considered too harsh or remote, their achievements completely erased from history by the relentless jungle. The lost city of the monkey god stands as a powerful testament to a simple truth. Some of our planet's greatest stories are not in books. They are written in the landscape, waiting for us to learn how to read them. The jungle's ability to conceal a civilization is matched only by its power to preserve one. In Cambodia, a world-famous temple stood for centuries as a solitary masterpiece, a breathtaking monument to faith known as Angkor Wat. Yet the truth, revealed by satellites, is that this iconic structure was never meant to be alone. It was the dazzling spiritual core of a lost megacity, a medieval urban giant whose true dimensions were swallowed by the forest. In the early 2000s, researchers turned to radar data originally collected by NASA, a space shuttle program. By analyzing how these radar waves interacted with the dense Cambodian terrain, they began to trace the faint, ghostly outlines of a forgotten world. The resulting map was nothing short of revolutionary. It showed that the Grand Temple was merely the central jewel in a vast, meticulously planned urban network. This was not a loose collection of villages. It was a sprawling, integrated metropolis covering an area of over 1,000 square kilometers. The radar revealed an astonishingly sophisticated grid of raised earthen roadways connecting neighborhoods and outlying villages. It charted an intricate hydraulic system of canals, reservoirs, and community ponds, a masterwork of engineering designed to capture monsoon rains and distribute water for agriculture throughout the dry season. This was the key to the city's survival. The ability to control water on such a monumental scale allowed the Khmer Empire to support a population that historians now estimate may have reached nearly 1 million people at its peak. That figure places Angkor among the largest pre-industrial cities in human history, a rival to ancient Rome in its scale and ambition. This discovery completely redefined Angkor. It transformed our understanding from a ceremonial center visited by pilgrims to a thriving, pulsating capital. The temple's grandeur was not an isolated act of devotion, but the crowning achievement of a highly organized and technologically advanced society. The canals were not just for irrigation, they were the arteries of commerce and administration. The roads were the pathways of an empire. The jungle that later reclaimed this metropolis did not destroy its memory. It simply held it in trust, waiting for a new kind of vision to piece the puzzle back together. What we learn is that sometimes the greatest monuments are not the stone towers we can see, but the invisible networks of human cooperation that made them possible. Yet a city does not need to be swallowed by jungle to vanish from history. Sometimes the very river that gives it life can become its shroud. This is the story of Tanis, a name familiar to millions from cinematic adventure, but whose true story is a greater puzzle than any fiction. In the Indiana Jones film, it was depicted as a lost city buried by a desert sandstorm. In reality, Tanis was a powerful capital of ancient Egypt, a seat of pharaohs that mysteriously faded from the map, its location debated by scholars for generations. The challenge was the landscape itself. The Nile Delta is a vast, flat, and fertile plain, its soil constantly reshaped by the river's ancient floods. A city built largely of mud brick, when abandoned, does not leave dramatic stone skeletons like those in the desert. It simply melts back into the earth, its outlines blurred by centuries of silt and agriculture. Finding it with traditional methods was like searching for a specific grain of sand on a beach. The breakthrough came from looking at the land not as it appears, but as it chemically is. Satellite sensors equipped with infrared and thermal imaging scan the delta. These tools can detect subtle differences in soil moisture and mineral composition. The key was the mud brick. The ancient bricks made from Nile clay and straw have a distinct chemical signature that differs slightly from the surrounding, undisturbed earth. To the satellite's eye, the ghostly footprints of walls, streets, and foundations began to glow in the data, a spectral blueprint of the city etched into the soil itself. This non-invasive map became a treasure chart for archaeologists, guiding their excavations with remarkable precision. What they uncovered was a revelation. Tanis was no minor settlement. They found the remains of immense temples dedicated to the gods Ammon and Mut, grand palaces that housed the kings of the 21st dynasty, and royal tombs that rivaled those in Thebes for their splendor. These tombs, remarkably intact, contained spectacular silver coffins and treasures that spoke of immense wealth and power. The discovery did more than find a city, it resurrected a dynasty. It proved that during a period of political fragmentation, Tanis was a true and thriving capital, a center of art, governance, and religion that history had nearly erased. This is the profound lesson of Tanis. Satellite technology solved a century-old historical debate, separating cinematic myth from archaeological reality. It recovered the legacy of a forgotten line of pharaohs from a landscape that had kept its secret by being utterly ordinary. The silence of the delta was not empty, it was simply waiting for us to learn its language. The desert holds its secrets in a different kind of silence, one of shifting dunes and scorching winds where a single misstep can erase a path forever. Here, the legends spoke not of jungles, but of a city of unparalleled wealth that simply vanished into the emptiness, a place called Ubar, known to many as the Atlantis of the sands. For over 2 millennia, its story persisted in the Quran and the tales of 1001 Nights, a magnificent hub for the caravan trade in frankincense, a resin more valuable than gold. The stories ended with a moral lesson, saying the city and its people were swallowed by the desert as a consequence of their pride, a divine punishment that left no trace. Generations of explorers searched the vast Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, and found nothing but sand and mirage. The challenge was the sheer, overwhelming scale. How do you find a single lost crossroads in an ocean of dunes the size of France? The answer came not from the ground, but from a space shuttle orbiting high above. In the 1990s, scientists examining radar imagery from a shuttle mission noticed something astonishing. The data revealed faint, ancient pathways etched into the desert floor, lines invisible to the human eye on the surface. These were not natural features, they were the fossilized tracks of countless camels, the ghost roads of frankincense caravans that had traveled for centuries. Like spokes on a wheel, these converging lines all pointed toward a single, remote location in modern-day Oman. It was a celestial map drawn by history itself. Following this map, a ground expedition found the truth where the tracks met. There was no proud city standing. Instead, they discovered the remains of a massive fortress. Its walls and towers collapsed into a giant sinkhole. The legend of a city swallowed by the desert was not just a metaphor, it was a precise geological record. Ubar had been built over a limestone cavern. The immense weight of the city and the constant drawing of water from wells below likely caused the cavern's roof to collapse, plunging the heart of the settlement into the earth in a single, catastrophic event. The desert sands then did the rest, flowing in to cover the ruins and seal the city's fate. Satellite radar did not just find a lost city, it validated a 2,000-year-old story, transforming a moral fable into a historical and geological detective story. It proved that the crossroads of ancient wealth was real, and that its end was as dramatic as the legends claimed. Ubar's discovery reminds us that sometimes the oldest stories are not mere fiction. They are memories passed down through generations, waiting for the right key to unlock the truth buried beneath the sand. The logistical genius of an empire often outlives its grandest monuments. While the legends of Ubar spoke of a single, wealthy crossroads, other powers built their legacy not in stone, but in movement, connecting a continent with invisible threads of administration and trade. For the mighty Mauryan Empire, which unified the Indian subcontinent over 2,200 years ago, historical texts praised its enlightened ruler Ashoka and its vast armies. Yet the practical mechanics of how such a colossal state actually functioned, how it moved troops, collected taxes, and facilitated commerce across millions of square kilometers, remained largely a scholarly guess. The empire's connective tissue had seemingly dissolved into the soil. Modern satellite analysis has now begun to stitch that fabric back together, revealing a hidden circulatory system that made the empire's heartbeat possible. By deploying multispectral imaging, researchers can detect the faintest scars and blessings left upon the land by ancient engineering. A buried road compacted by millennia of foot and cart traffic affects drainage and soil density. This, in turn, influences the health and type of vegetation growing above it. From space, these subtle variations in plant color and vigor translate into clear, linear pathways cutting across the modern landscape. What the data revealed was a sprawling, sophisticated network. Faint lines emerged, tracing the routes of ancient highways known as Rajapathas, or royal roads, that linked the empire's administrative capitals with distant provinces. The satellites also hinted at evidence of canals and irrigation works, suggesting a coordinated effort to support agriculture and settlement along these corridors. This was more than just a map of old roads, it was a blueprint for imperial control. These routes allowed for the rapid deployment of the Mauryan military to quell unrest in far-flung regions. They enabled a streamlined courier system for royal decrees and intelligence reports, binding the empire together with information. Most importantly, they supercharged commerce, allowing goods like spices, textiles, and precious stones to flow safely across the subcontinent, enriching the state and fostering economic interdependence. This discovery fundamentally shifts our understanding. The Mauryan Empire's greatness was not solely due to the charisma of its rulers or the strength of its soldiers. It was underpinned by a masterful logistical framework, a pre-industrial internet of physical connections that managed the flow of people, goods, and authority. The satellites did not find a lost city here. Instead, they recovered the lost nervous system of a forgotten superpower, proving that the true scale of an ancient empire is measured not only by the territory it claimed on a map, but by the enduring marks of its organization upon the earth itself. Sometimes the most revolutionary discoveries are not of places unknown, but of places misunderstood. For decades, the monumental ruins at Caral in Peru's Soup Valley were not a complete secret. Local communities knew of the ancient mounds, and archaeologists had begun to study them. Yet the true, staggering scale of Caral's achievement remained hidden in plain sight, its story fragmented and incomplete. It was the view from orbit that wove those fragments into a narrative that changed history. Through satellite imagery and detailed topographic mapping, researchers could suddenly see Caral not as an isolated site, but as the brilliant heart of a vast, interconnected network. The imagery revealed it was surrounded by at least 19 other contemporary settlements dotting the valley, all linked by a shared culture and a sophisticated system of irrigation canals that turned a desert river valley into a fertile garden. This was not just a village, it was the nucleus of an entire civilization. The most profound revelation, however, was written in time itself. Radiocarbon dating of materials from Caral confirmed it was built over 5,000 years ago. That single fact carries immense weight. It means the Great Pyramids of Caral were under construction centuries before the first stones were laid for the Pyramids of Giza in Egypt, and long before the rise of the great cities of Mesopotamia. Caral is now recognized as the oldest center of civilization in the entire Americas. This discovery did more than push back a timeline, it shattered a long-held assumption. For generations, the story of human civilization was told as a single, sequential narrative beginning in the Middle East and spreading outward. Caral, seen from space in its full context, proved a different truth entirely. Here on the arid coast of Peru, a complex society arose completely independently, with no contact with or influence from the old world. The satellite perspective made this independence stunningly clear. The geometric precision of Caral's urban plan was laid bare from above. Its 6 large pyramidal structures, its sunken circular plazas, and its residential districts were arranged with clear intention, not haphazard growth. Most strikingly, the alignments of its major monuments correspond to key astronomical events, suggesting a society deeply in tune with the cycles of the sun and stars, using that knowledge to structure both their calendar and their sacred architecture. They built with stone and reed, traded with distant communities for rare materials, and developed a complex social structure without a written language, without the wheel, and without any known system of warfare. Their legacy was one of cooperation, astronomy, and architectural harmony. This perspective from space underscores a profound and humbling truth. Civilization was not a single invention that spread from one cradle. It was a possibility, a flowering of human potential that occurred in multiple cradles across the globe when conditions were right. The people of the Soup Valley looked at their desert and their river and saw not limitation but opportunity. They built a society that lasted for 1,000 years, a testament to human ingenuity that stood in complete isolation from the rest of the world. Their story had been waiting in the coastal sands for millennia, not lost, but simply awaiting the right vantage point to be understood in its full, groundbreaking context. The idea of a city without streets seems like a contradiction, a puzzle for the modern mind. Yet on the windswept Anatolian plain of Turkey, a great mound holds the blueprint for precisely that, a revolutionary experiment in human closeness that began 9,000 years ago. This is Çatalhöyük, and while its earthen form has always been visible, its true nature was a mystery until we looked through the soil from above. Satellite-based geophysical surveys, using tools that sense magnetic and electrical properties beneath the surface, have mapped its subterranean heart in stunning detail. The image they produced is astonishing, a dense, intricate honeycomb of mud-brick dwellings built directly against one another, sharing walls like cells in a living hive. There were no lanes, no alleys, no public squares in the way we understand them. Movement across this early metropolis happened over the rooftops, with ladders providing the only entry down into each family's private sanctuary. This was a community that turned inward, prioritizing security, shared resources, and perhaps a profound sense of collective identity over the open flow of a street grid. The satellite data does more than reveal the layout, it tells a story of staggering endurance. The scans show a settlement continuously occupied for over 2,000 years, a span of time that dwarfs the entire history of the United States as a nation. Generation after generation lived, worked, and passed on in these same tightly packed homes. When one dwelling showed signs of age, it was carefully filled in, and a new one built directly atop its foundations, slowly raising the entire community mound layer by sacred layer. From this orbital perspective, we gain a profound appreciation for the scale of this prehistoric undertaking. At its peak, up to 10,000 individuals may have called this place home, making it one of the largest and most complex human settlements of its era anywhere on Earth. The technology provides a clear blueprint, but the people of Çatalhöyük fill it with meaning. Their lives were rich with ritual and symbolism. They buried their family members beneath the packed clay floors of their homes, maintaining a tangible connection to their ancestors. They adorned their walls with vibrant murals depicting wild animals, hunting scenes, and abstract patterns, and they crafted intricate clay figurines suggesting a rich spiritual world. This was a society on the cusp of invention, experimenting with agriculture, animal domestication, and early pottery, all within the unique social laboratory of their streetless city. Çatalhöyük offers a priceless window into a pivotal moment, a time when humanity was first asking fundamental questions about how to live together in large numbers. It shows us that urban life does not have a single origin story or a required form. Their solution, a labyrinth of connected homes under a shared sky, was a brilliant and successful adaptation that flourished for millennia. Their legacy, now fully mapped from space, is a powerful reminder that the foundations of community, art, and home are far older and more diverse than we often suppose. A fortress in the sky captures our imagination, but a kingdom requires foundations on the ground. The breathtaking rock of Sigiriya in Sri Lanka, with its legendary Lion's Gate and palace perched 200 meters above the forest, has long been celebrated as an isolated wonder, a desperate king's magnificent and impregnable retreat. That story, however, was only a fragment of the truth. Recent LiDAR surveys have digitally peeled back the dense forest canopy around the rock, and what emerged was not wild jungle, but a meticulously ordered world. The data revealed a vast, sophisticated urban landscape laid out with geometric precision, a hidden capital whose scale and planning were invisible from the ground. This was no simple fortress, it was the engineered heart of an entire domain. From the air, the scans mapped an astonishing radial plan. Broad, straight avenues fanned out from the base of the rock like spokes on a wheel, connecting ceremonial gateways, residential quarters, and elaborate water gardens. The hydraulic system alone was a masterpiece. The data showed a complex network of canals, reservoirs, and underground conduits designed to store monsoon rain and distribute it for agriculture, sanitation, and stunning aesthetic displays. This system turned a seasonal landscape into a perennial oasis, supporting a large population year-round. Even more revealing were the outlines of numerous monastic complexes and meditation retreats scattered throughout this planned territory, integrated directly into the urban fabric. This tells us that Sigiriya was conceived as far more than a military stronghold or a royal palace. It was designed as a complete sacred and administrative capital, a physical manifestation of divine kingship and cosmic order. The ambition of King Cassiopeia, who built this in the 5th century, becomes clear not from the rock alone, but from the transformed land around it. He did not merely seek a fortress in the sky, he sought to reshape the very earth into a testament to his power and vision. The LiDAR blueprint shows us that every pathway, every reservoir, every garden was part of a grand statement. This discovery recontextualizes Sigiriya entirely. The rock fortress is the dazzling pinnacle, the crown jewel, but the true monument was the organized, fertile, and spiritually charged kingdom that spread out beneath it. The forest that grew over this planned city did not destroy it. It preserved its perfect geometry like a time capsule. What we see now from above is the ghost of a grand political idea, a greenprint for power written not on parchment, but directly onto the landscape itself, waiting centuries for a technology that could read its line. The faintest human footprint can rewrite a continent's story. For decades, the tale of Vikings in the New World had a definitive beginning and end at Elands Ox Meadows in northern Newfoundland. a small but certain settlement proving Norse explorers reached these shores around the year 1000. Yet a single confirmed site only deepened the mystery. Were these the only visitors? Did they venture further, establishing other waypoints along these vast forested coasts? The search for answers seemed to be a task for patient ground surveys and sheer luck along thousands of kilometers of remote shoreline. Then, in 2015, a different kind of search began in an office, with scientists examining satellite imagery of southern Newfoundland. Their focus was a windswept headland known as Point Rosie. The images revealed something intriguing, a series of subtle rectilinear shapes and soil discolorations that stood out starkly against the natural patterns of the peat bog. To the trained eye, these shapes bore a striking resemblance to the foundations of turf-walled structures, the exact building technique the Norse used at Elands Ox Meadows. From orbit, it looked like the ghost of a small, man-made enclosure. This was not a discovery of ruins, but a discovery of potential, a high-tech hypothesis generated from space. The satellite data suggested a tantalizing possibility, a second, more southerly Viking outpost. It offered a new clue in the saga of Norse exploration, hinting that their voyages along the North American coast, which they called Vinland, may have been more extensive, more deliberate than a single settlement could prove. Ground investigations followed, with archaeologists excavating the precise coordinates provided by the satellites. The results, however, entered the complex realm of historical interpretation. Researchers did find evidence of intense, focused hearth activity with fire-cracked stones and bog iron ore, a material the Norse were known to process for tools. Yet the definitive, unambiguous turf walls were not conclusively found. Some argued the site was a natural feature, while others saw the evidence as compelling, if not yet definitive, proof of Norse presence. This ambiguity, however, does not diminish the power of the discovery at Point Rosie. Instead, it perfectly illustrates a revolutionary new phase in archaeology. Satellite technology is not just a tool for confirming what we already suspect. It is a powerful engine for generating new questions and targeting the most promising places to ask them. It can scan entire coastlines and highlight the merest whisper of human activity, guiding costly and difficult ground expeditions with unprecedented precision. Point Rosie stands as a beacon for what might still be found. It pushes the boundaries of the known Viking world not by providing a final answer, but by proving we are asking the right questions in the right places. The story of Norse in North America is no longer confined to a single, celebrated site. It is a narrative written in faint impressions along the land, a trail we are now learning to follow from the stars above. The great travelers of history left more than sagas, they left shadows on the earth, and we are just beginning to see them. The dense canopy of the Guatemalan jungle had long been the perfect guardian of secrets. For over a century, archaeologists painstakingly mapped the great Maya pyramids of Tikal and Calakmul, believing these stone citadels were powerful but isolated city-states, separated by vast tracts of untamed wilderness. The true scale of what lay between them, however, was a mystery the jungle refused to surrender. That changed in a single, breathtaking moment in 2018, when the largest LiDAR survey ever conducted in the history of archaeology scanned over 2,000 square kilometers of that impenetrable green. When the digital forest was lifted away, the land beneath told a completely different story. The data did not reveal empty spaces between the known cities. Instead, it unveiled a continuous, sprawling megalopolis of staggering complexity. The scan identified more than 60,000 previously unknown structures hidden for a millennium. This was not a collection of separate sites, but a single, integrated urban fabric. The imagery showed a meticulously engineered landscape. There were not just grand plazas and pyramids, but tens of thousands of modest residential platforms, revealing where the everyday population lived. A vast network of raised causeways, like ancient highways, connected everything, allowing for movement of people and goods even during the rainy season. Sophisticated terracing systems covered hillsides, turning them into productive farmland, and an intricate web of irrigation canals and reservoirs managed a precious water supply. The most profound implication was written in numbers. Before this survey, estimates placed the population of the classic Maya lowlands in the millions. The LiDAR evidence suggested a society that was far larger, denser, and more agriculturally intensive than anyone had dared to propose. It painted a picture of a civilization that supported many millions more people, a demographic scale that rivals the most populous ancient societies of Europe and Asia. This forces a complete rethinking of Maya society. The old model of scattered ceremonial centers, each ruling over a small hinterland, collapses. In its place, we see a landscape of near-continuous settlement, a civilization that had intensely modified and managed every part of its environment to sustain an enormous population. They were not simply living in the jungle, they had mastered it, reshaping it into a vast, productive garden city. The discovery also revealed a society under pressure. The scans showed widespread fortifications, defensive walls, and watchtowers in places once thought to be peaceful, hinting at a level of conflict and competition that was previously underestimated. This new map does not just show us where the Maya lived, it shows us how they lived and perhaps what challenges they ultimately faced. From orbit, we now see the Maya not as a mysterious culture that vanished, but as a breathtakingly ambitious and sophisticated civilization whose true magnitude was simply waiting, perfectly preserved, beneath a blanket of leaves. The desert's silence holds entire libraries of wood and clay. Far to the east, along the treacherous southern branch of the Silk Road, the Taklamakan Desert in China presents one of Earth's most forbidding landscapes. Its name in the local tongue translates ominously to the place of no return. Yet for centuries, this very desert was a corridor of vibrant life, dotted with oasis cities that pulsed with the commerce and culture of a connected world. One of the most poignant of these lost hubs is Nia. Known in ancient texts as Jingju, it was a vital way station where caravans would rest, resupply, and trade before daring the next leg of their journey. For over a millennium, Nia lay entombed under mountains of sand, its story reduced to fragments in historical records. Uncovering it with traditional methods was a near impossible task, as dunes can shift overnight, erasing any progress. The key to finding Nia and understanding its fate came from seeing through those very dunes. Satellite radar and multispectral imaging provided a map of the invisible. By penetrating the dry surface, these technologies traced the long-vanished river channels that once snaked through the region, the lifeblood of the oasis. They also revealed the stark outlines of the city itself, not in stone, but in the spectral impressions of wooden posts, fences, and foundations buried below. From this orbital vantage, the ghost of Nia emerged with stunning clarity. The data showed a well-organized settlement, with a main street flanked by timber-framed houses, their rooms still outlined in the sand. It mapped the remnants of extensive orchards, where fruit trees once grew in neat rows, and the distinct circular bases of Buddhist stupas, marking the city's spiritual heart. This was not a barren outpost, but a lush, cultivated island in a sea of sand, a multicultural melting pot where Chinese, Tibetan, Indian, and Central Asian merchants, monks, and travelers would have mingled. The satellite perspective does more than map the city, it narrates its end. By overlaying the ancient river courses with the city's layout, a clear and sobering story unfolds. The imagery shows that Nia's sustaining river gradually shifted its path over time, a slow-motion disaster for a community entirely dependent on its water. As the river moved, the desert advanced dune by relentless dune. We can see from space how the city was ultimately starved of its vital resource, the orchards withering and the wells running dry. This environmental shift likely forced a gradual, heartbreaking abandonment as the lifeblood of the oasis faded away. The final residents packed what they could and left, and the sands flowed in to preserve a moment in time. Excavations guided by these satellite maps have recovered astonishingly intimate details, from carved wooden furniture and intricate textiles to administrative documents written on wooden slips, some even bearing the fingerprint of the clerk who last handled them. These finds breathe profound humanity into the satellite blueprints, connecting us to the daily hopes and transactions of people who lived there. Nia's story, seen from orbit, is a powerful lesson in the delicate balance between civilization and environment. It shows us a thriving community built by human connection along the Silk Road, ultimately undone not by war or politics, but by the slow, inexorable turn of a river and the patience of the desert. It stands as a quiet testament from the past, reminding us that the greatest forces shaping human history are not always armies or empires, but the ever-changing ground beneath our feet. The Amazon's deepest secret was not hidden in its canopy, but etched into its very floor. For generations, the prevailing story was one of a pristine, untouched wilderness, a vast green cathedral inhabited only by small, nomadic tribes living in harmony with an untamable forest. This narrative painted the Amazon as a world apart, a place where large-scale human civilization was an ecological impossibility. That story, we now know, was profoundly incomplete. The true revelation began not with an archaeologist's shovel, but with the stark, aerial views provided by modern deforestation and satellite imagery. From that vantage point, a hidden language emerged from the earth. Scattered across the Brazilian Amazon basin, particularly in the state of Acre, are hundreds of enormous geometric earthworks. These are not piles of stone, they are intricate patterns carved directly into the landscape, formed by deep ditches and adjoining earthen banks that create perfect circles, precise squares, and complex octagons, some over 300 meters in diameter. They are so large and so geometrically perfect that their full form is only recognizable from the air. These structures, now called geoglyphs, are silent but monumental declarations of a forgotten past. They tell us that long before European contact, and indeed for millennia, this region was home to complex, settled societies with the social organization, engineering skill, and communal purpose to reshape their environment on a staggering scale. The purpose of these earthworks remains a subject of fascinating study. They were likely multifunctional, serving the community in several integrated ways. Some may have had ceremonial significance, acting as ritual spaces or astronomical calendars aligned with solstices. Others show signs of being defensive enclosures with the deep ditches forming barriers. Many researchers also see them as the foundations for residential villages, with the banks supporting wooden structures and the cleared interiors serving as communal plazas, protected from seasonal floods. What is undeniable is their collective meaning. The discovery of these geoglyphs forces a complete and dramatic re-evaluation of Amazonian history. This was not a virgin forest. It was a managed, domesticated, and engineered landscape. The people here were not passive inhabitants of the jungle, they were active forest gardeners. They practiced a sophisticated form of agroforestry, cultivating useful trees like palm and Brazil nut, and enriching the soil with a dark, fertile compost known as terra preta, or Amazonian dark earth, which they created intentionally. The geoglyphs were likely integrated into this managed landscape, situated in areas of elevated ground that were carefully cleared and maintained within a productive mosaic forest. This discovery shatters the old myth of the empty Amazon. It reveals a history where human societies flourished in large numbers, shaping the biodiversity we see today. The rainforest we often call untouched is in many ways a living legacy, a garden that has grown up around the footprints of its ancient caretakers. These geometric forms in the earth are more than just archaeological sites. They are a profound reminder that our planet's greatest ecosystems are often the result of a long and intimate partnership between humanity and nature. The Amazon's true story is one of innovation, not isolation, written in circles and squares upon the land, waiting for us to finally look down and understand. But what happens when a city does not crumble but simply steps into the water? The story of Venice, that breathtaking labyrinth of canals and palaces, seems to begin magically from the sea itself. Yet every legend has a birthplace on solid ground. Just a few kilometers inland from the modern islands, beneath the fertile fields and vineyards near Venice's own airport, lies the ghost of its ancestor, a Roman metropolis known as Altinum. This was no minor settlement. For centuries, Altinum thrived as a wealthy port and trading hub at the head of the Adriatic, a vital node in the Roman world. Its fate, however, was written by the very waters that gave it life. As the Western Roman Empire faltered in the 5th century, the region faced increasing instability. Historical accounts suggest that as invading groups moved into the area, the citizens of Altinum made a monumental decision. They did not stand and fight for their stone city. Instead, they gathered what they could and fled to the relative safety of the nearby lagoon's scattered islands, leaving their homes, their forums, and their theaters to the elements. This was not a destruction, but a deliberate abandonment. Over the following centuries, the marsh waters slowly crept in, and the once bustling streets and canals silted up. Farmland eventually covered the ruins, leaving no visible trace above ground. Altinum vanished so completely that its exact location was debated, becoming more myth than memory, the submerged foundation upon which Venice's myth was built. The key to finding it lay in seeing the land not as it was, but as it remembered. During a particularly dry summer, researchers analyzed aerial photographs and multispectral satellite imagery of the suspect fields. The technology detected subtle variations in soil moisture and plant health. Stone foundations buried just beneath the plow line retain less water than the surrounding soil, stressing the crops above them. Conversely, the filled-in canals and ditches retain more moisture, nourishing the plants that grow there. To the satellite's eye, these differences painted a stunningly detailed picture. Like a photographic negative developing in slow motion, the complete urban plan of Altinum emerged from the earth. The data revealed the clear outline of the city's defensive walls punctuated by gates, a neat grid of streets and canals that served as waterways and roads, the semicircular curve of a theater, and the distinct rectangular footprints of homes and public buildings. This was not a collection of random features. It was the intact blueprint of a living Roman city, preserved by the very act of being left behind. The waterlogged conditions that followed its abandonment likely helped preserve organic materials like wood and leather, offering a potential time capsule of daily life unparalleled in drier Roman sites. This discovery does more than locate a lost city. It reveals a profound moment of transition. From above, we can literally see the crossroads of history. One can trace the route the fleeing citizens likely took from the city gates toward the lagoon. In that act, the static, land-bound Roman model of urban life was traded for a new, adaptive existence on the water. The canals of Altinum were prototypes for the Grand Canal. Its reliance on maritime trade foreshadowed Venice's empire. The ghostly map shows us that Venice did not spring from the sea fully formed. It was a conscious evolution, a direct transplantation of urban knowledge and social structure from a failing stone world into a fluid, defensive new one. Altinum's legacy is therefore unique. It is a city frozen at the moment of its departure, a preserved snapshot offering a clear before image to Venice's dazzling after. Its silent streets, now visible only from space, tell a powerful story of resilience, not through conquest but through adaptation, proving that sometimes a civilization's greatest act is not to stand its ground, but to wisely move to new waters. The same volcanic power that can erase a civilization can also preserve its final breath. In April 1815, Mount Tambora on the Indonesian island of Sumbawa unleashed the most devastating volcanic eruption in recorded human history. The explosion was heard over 2,000 kilometers away. Its ash cloud plunged the planet into a volcanic winter, and the following year became known across the globe as the year without a summer, a period of widespread crop failure and hardship. The immediate human cost on Sumbawa was profound, with entire communities lost. For generations, the story centered on the global climate event, a geologic footnote of immense power. Yet beneath meters of hardened ash and pumice, another story lay buried in perfect, tragic stillness, a lost kingdom known as the Tambora culture. While the thick, gray layer covering the peninsula was obvious, the scale of what it entombed remained a mystery, too vast and fragile to uncover with traditional digs alone. This is where the view from orbit provided a delicate touch. Satellite terrain analysis and ground-penetrating radar surveys have begun to map this buried world without disturbing its rest. These tools send signals into the compacted ash, painting a picture of the ground beneath by reading the echoes that return. What they reveal is not a random scattering of debris, but the organized blueprint of a society. The data outlines the clear foundations of structured wooden houses arranged in villages, pathways connecting communities, and evidence of agricultural fields, all frozen in the exact moment the ash fell. This was a sophisticated culture with a distinct language and artistic traditions, as fragments of pottery and bronze artifacts found at the edges of the site have shown. They were traders and farmers connected to wider networks in the archipelago, living on the fertile slopes of the mountain that would ultimately define their legacy. The satellite-assisted mapping creates a heartbreaking contrast. It shows a vibrant, everyday world suddenly encapsulated, a Pompeii of the East sealed under a different kind of shroud. This discovery shifts our understanding from a purely geologic event to a deeply human one. The technology allows us to respectfully peer into that single, catastrophic day and see more than destruction. We see a preserved cross-section of life. It offers a unique window into a pre-colonial Indonesian kingdom that left no written records of its own, its entire history saved from time by the very force that ended it. This reminds us of the profound and fragile dialogue between human ambition and the planet's raw power. Civilizations build in places of abundance, often in the fertile shadow of volcanoes, trading security for sustenance. Tambora's story, now emerging from the ash through these gentle electronic eyes, is a solemn testament to that ancient bargain. It tells us that our histories are not always written on parchment or stone. Sometimes they are written in layers of earth, waiting for a respectful glance from the heavens to share their final, silent testimony. Stone tells one story, but the land tells another. The soaring, dry stone walls of Great Zimbabwe have stood for centuries as a powerful symbol, their silent grandeur speaking of a past kingdom's wealth and authority. For generations, however, the true scale of that kingdom was invisible, its story limited by what the eye could see from the ground. Colonial narratives often dismissed the ruins as the work of foreign powers, refusing to acknowledge the depth of indigenous African achievement. Modern satellite imagery has now rewritten that story, not by altering the stones, but by revealing the vast, managed world that surrounded them. From orbit, the analysis of multispectral data and terrain mapping paints a breathtaking picture of organization. Radiating out from the famous stone enclosures, the imagery reveals an extensive network of agricultural terracing carved into the hillsides. It shows the subtle, geometric patterns of ancient field systems and the faint footprints of countless smaller homesteads and villages, all linked by a web of pathways. This is not the landscape of a scattered chieftaincy. It is the clear signature of a highly centralized and sophisticated state. the view from space shows a civilization that mastered its environment with remarkable foresight. The terracing was a brilliant adaptation to control soil erosion and maximize agricultural yield in a sometimes challenging climate. The organized field systems point to coordinated farming practices capable of producing a substantial surplus. This surplus was the foundation of everything. It sustained a large population residing in and around the capital, and it created the wealth that fueled long-distance trade. The satellite data solidifies what artifacts had long suggested, that Great Zimbabwe was a vital hub in a network that stretched all the way to the Indian Ocean coast. Gold, ivory, and other goods flowed out, while luxury items like Chinese porcelain and Persian glass beads flowed in, found within the ruins themselves. This external connection was matched by profound internal management. The imagery reveals a capital city that was the administrative heart of a vast region, capable of mobilizing labor for grand public works, managing food distribution, and overseeing a complex economy. The stone walls were not an isolated monument, they were the nucleus of a thriving, self-sufficient civilization. This orbital perspective delivers a powerful corrective to history. It moves the discussion beyond mere architecture into the realm of statecraft, ecology, and economic power. The true monument of Great Zimbabwe is not just the enclosures of cut stone, but the entire engineered landscape that supported them, a testament to planning, innovation, and social cohesion on a grand scale. It affirms from the most modern vantage point possible that this was unequivocally a pinnacle of indigenous African civilization, its legacy written as clearly in the shaped earth as it is in the standing walls. The journey from these 15 rediscovered cities is more than a list of locations. It is a map of human ambition written in earth, stone, and shadow. From the engineered waterways of Angkor to the converging caravan tracks of Ubar, each discovery shares a common thread. They were all hidden in plain sight, waiting for a perspective we simply did not possess until now. This represents a fundamental shift in our relationship with history. We are no longer limited to digging where we can see. We can now see where we should dig. Satellite technology has become a bridge across time, not by moving us backward, but by bringing the past forward into our field of view with startling clarity. These electronic eyes allow us to witness the grand narrative of civilizations not as isolated events, but as interconnected stories of ingenuity. We see the Khmer engineer managing water for 1 million people, the Maya farmer terracing a hillside, the Roman citizen of Altinum choosing a new life on the lagoon. These were people solving problems, building communities, and leaving a mark upon their world, a mark so enduring that it survived centuries of silence. The true power of this technology lies in its humility. It asks questions of the landscape itself and listens for the answers written in soil chemistry, vegetation health, and laser reflections. It restores agency to cultures that left no written records, allowing their achievements in urban planning, agriculture, and environmental management to speak for themselves. This corrects historical imbalances, affirming the sophistication of indigenous societies from the Amazon to Zimbabwe, and rewriting chapters of our shared human story with newfound respect. As these orbital sentinels grow ever more precise, one question lingers with thrilling possibility. What else is waiting? The data already collected likely holds secrets we have not yet thought to look for, patterns not yet recognized as the footprints of a lost town or a forgotten road. The next great lost city may not be found by an explorer in a pith helmet, but by an algorithm scanning petabytes of satellite imagery, flagging a curious arrangement of pixels for a human researcher to ponder. This is the new frontier of discovery, where the past is not a closed book, but an open dataset inviting a new generation to look, to question, and to connect. If this voyage through resurrected worlds has sparked your curiosity, consider joining our community for more explorations into history's greatest enigmas. Let us know in the comments below which of these satellite-revealed cities reshaped your understanding of the past the most. Your perspective is the next piece of the puzzle.